and I am a professor of management at the University of Incarnate Word, and was just talking to a group of 27 MBA students about the strike of the International Longshoremen Association and how that would affect the U.S. and particularly the people in San Antonio.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about we do see people panicking now. Tell me, should they be panicking? What does this mean for us here in San Antonio?
Yes. So the interestingly, the situation is very complex. The international longshoremen make approximately about $150,000 on average. And again, most of those jobs are found on the East Coast, particularly in the South and in the Gulf, including Texas. And so that's 150,000 is the mean, which means about 50% are above 150,000 a year and 50,000 are below, 50% are below $150,000 a year. That household income in the United States is about 75,000. So longshoremen in general make about twice the average household income. They're seeking about a 77% increase in pay over a 5-year period. The head of the union himself is actually makes about $1 million a year and reportedly owns a yacht and an expensive supercar. So they're not hurting, but of course they're very concerned about their jobs, particularly and this has been circulated somewhat in the business circles. Is one of the sticking points, as you may have heard, was the growth of AI. Artificial intelligence is again showing its hand and playing a role, very similar to what it did in the Hollywood strikes, if you remember when the Hollywood, both the actors and the writers were going on strike, they were concerned that AI and automated systems would be starting to write scripts for movies. In this case, the longshoremen are seeking assurances from private businesses that there will be no automation when it comes to robotics, particularly AI-enabled robotics for the cranes and other work. Interestingly, and again, the longshoremen have obviously the right to, and if they think that they can get better pay to take care of themselves and their families, I am completely in support of that. But interestingly, one of the things that they talk about is that their job is extremely dangerous, but yet automation would decrease almost instantly the amount of deaths and injuries that would occur in this job where they're dealing with very large pieces of freight. For example, the shipping crates it can be extremely heavy, and if there's accidents, they can lead to serious injury and death. So the automation and the robotics is one of the key sticking points, interestingly. And it seems that the longshoremen are, if you will, reading the tea leaves and see that the future is going to be automated and AI is going to have a major impact in the United States. Just about a week and a half ago, one of the companies that's been working with AI the longest, IBM, just announced that they were going to lay off about 7,000 to 8,000 people. And that's a year before the CEO had predicted that they would be able to lay off about 3% of their population, about 7,000 to 8,000 employees due to AI. So the longshoremen, I think, are trying to make money while they can because they know that in the future there will be less jobs available in that position because of automation. My apologies, that was
No, you're
long.
fine. That went amazing. Less questions for me to ask because you got it all out. I love that.
So
Now,
how does it affect San Antonio? This is an incredible question. As my fellow San Antonians are probably aware, there's a run on toilet paper and other types of products right now. It's somewhat humorous because in the United States, as of 2022, over 68% of all paper products are made based on recycled products. In other words, they get the products from dumps and from landfills and other things, and they recycle the paper. Not only just for the environmental good it does, but actually because it's a lower cost material that they can get access to. The most paper products are made from materials that are actually used and thrown away here in the United States. The run during COVID was more based on the manufacturing productivity because many people weren't going into workplaces, particularly factories, where you had to work close together, and they didn't know how the spread of the disease would be working in these environments. The COVID environment is much different than this, but we aren't importing tissue paper or toilet paper from overseas. So this shouldn't affect toilet paper at all. So this is what we call in business the animal spirits or the people's emotions and other things run amok. Oh, and by the way, the other interesting point, the largest imports of lumber and other materials that go into paper is actually Canada, and we actually get a significant amount of that through rail and through freight, not due to ports. So again, the I don't think we'll be lacking in paper products in the near future due to the international ports being shut down or closed or even constrained.
You could think that this will go on. I know it just kind of started. It hasn't been here on, they haven't been on strike for too long, but do you think it could go out for some period of time?
This is a fascinating subject. So obviously we're in an election season, and there's going to be increasing pressure, particularly on the Biden-Harris administration, to potentially end this and put pressure perhaps on private businesses and the public entities that work in the port systems. So I think that that's one of the things the union's counting on is that they can take advantage of the pressure that comes with an election season and, to try to maintain business as much as possible. So that is playing into this. The other thing that is playing into it is let's not forget that the AI and robotics and automation is upon us, and it's going to be affecting many jobs. As we saw from the writers' strike in Hollywood, that lasted a very long time, much longer than we expected. And that's because the businesses knew the incredible productivity power that was gained by having generative AI potentially involved in writing scripts. If you can reduce the human capital cost in most businesses, that's the most significant or largest line item. So if you can reduce that, you increase not only your productivity, but your profit margin significantly. So the automation piece, I suspect, is going to be an incredible sticking point, and that could push it farther. Now, with politics involved, it could go either way. It could go longer, it could go shorter, depending on the involvement of the various politicians and bureaucrats that want to get involved.
Wonderful information. Is there anything else that I'm leaving out that you want to add into the story?
So I think it's really a fascinating aspect of the world right now. Not only the fact that technology is having this amazing impact on jobs. We see many areas being affected. We've seen journalism affected. We've seen technology companies affected. We're seeing things like marketing affected. And now we're seeing areas, for example, that are affected by, say, manufacturing, logistics, distribution, supply chain, that where either scheduling or administrative duties or potentially even, again, working with heavy equipment could be affected. I suspect this is going to be the first of many similar situations that we're going to be hearing about in the near future. There's an old historic lesson that we are taught in business schools about a group of miners that were called the Luddites. And the Luddites fought in the early industrialization period of Great Britain against the mining companies that were bringing in more automation. At that time, it was just in the form of motors rather than having people push the carts up and down hills, for example. And they were concerned that these these new technologies would greatly decrease overall the number of jobs, and then people would be homeless and jobless and not be able to take care of their families. What we have seen, interestingly, is there tends to be a force multiplier effect from technology, which allows for new jobs to be created. So I, for one, am hopeful. Now, I do realize that this is going to lead to changes in some people's lives and the skills that are helpful and necessary to be able to get a job. But overall, what we'll find is there's still a place for people, and people, particularly that utilize AI or maintain AI or train AI or work with AI, are still going to be there. The same argument was made many years ago in banks with ATMs. And then what we found is when ATMs were implemented, that people had to fill the ATMs up with money. People had to go clean the ATMs. People had to service the ATMs. People had to reprogram the ATMs. It turned out that there was a variety of business models and business functions that grew up around these automated systems. And so the same will eventually happen, but we are looking at a period of reskilling. And I understand it is going to be, if you will, scary for some of these positions. And it is going to change things.
Absolutely. Great information. You educated me on some things that I didn't know about either. So that's really great.
It would make a great another, if you'd like to look at doing another report on some of the greater impacts that AI is having. For example, it could have been that AI had an impact on the jobs loss that we saw recently at USAA, and we suspect there's going to be other areas going to be affected very shortly, because the AI systems are just getting smarter and better. And my gosh, we just saw another $6 billion being thrown at OpenAI and ChatGPT to help them become a private for-profit company. So this story is only going to get more interesting, and it's going to make some people afraid, but it's also going to make other people very hopeful.